growing up, even when I was in fourth grade, I was living in Japan, and my fourth grade teacher gave me my feedback for the semester in school and said, "You always look worried." When I was in fourth grade, about what? Like, I don't even know what I could have been really worried about except getting my homework assignments in. And then I get to college, and it was the first time I had my first, like, we'll call it like real mental health issue, where my stress, which previously had like fueled me, and it was like everybody's stressed, this is normal, turned into not sleeping. I was coming back and forth between the US and Asia to visit my family. I was jet lagged. I had a lot of work to do. I have a reading disability. Couldn't keep up with my work. I was staying up later, not sleeping. The not sleeping was making it so I couldn't concentrate. And I remember thinking, this can't be my life. Like, I can't believe I'm not sleeping again, which I knew was like, that was like my kind of fundamental basic block after college. I need to get out of here. I need to go find a place where I not only can sleep, but feel like I'm not always 12 steps behind. And that's when I realized I needed to leave the company and start exploring wisdom that existed, obviously, in the East, in the West, in science, to figure out what are the things that people do every day to make sure that they feel good on a regular basis. And I think it's been me chasing my own problem, which is, I'm stressed. I want to be in an environment that feels good. Where is that environment? I don't feel good anymore. Where is, I need to go study this because we can't find one. And then now I need to go create my own company. So I'm an accidental entrepreneur.
This is Lissy Alden, the founder building what she always dreamt of finding in her darkest times. After studying the science of how the mind and performance work, she realized she had to go east to really discover real wisdom. In this episode, she distills all of her understanding about peak performance and how the greatest achievers leverage tools every single day from different cultures and philosophy to sustain their flow and energy. As always, enjoy the conversation and let me know what you think in the comments. Alrighty, we are back once again at the Founders Bible. Today we're speaking with Lissy. How's it going?
Good. It's been a great day. Just got back after a week off. I just got married.
Amazing. Congratulations. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Let me break the ice. This is traditional question. Nobody escapes from it. Why the heck are you a founder? What's wrong with you? What's your story?
I love it. I love the question. I love the way you asked it. What's wrong with me? A lot of things. How much time do you have? I think for me, I have a mental fitness company. And growing up, even when I was in fourth grade, I was living in Japan, and my fourth grade teacher gave me my feedback for the semester in school and said, "You always look worried." When I was in fourth grade, about what? Like, I don't even know what I could have been really worried about except getting my homework assignments in. And I think that stress is something that we talk about a lot as adults. Like, you turn 18 and that's something that turns on for people. For me, I think I was always like a little bit of a stress ball, like a perfectionist, a bit of a people pleaser. I mentioned this, we grew up all over the world. So I moved a lot, and getting used to being liked was something that I had to do quickly because I was always making new friends. And so I was always really stressed, and I didn't even know what to call it. I just, I wanted to do a good job. I wanted to, make sure I got my homework assignments done. And then I get to college, and it was the first time I had my first, like, we'll call it like real mental health issue, where my stress, which previously had like fueled me, and it was like everybody's stressed, this is normal, turned into not sleeping. I was coming back and forth between the US and Asia to visit my family. I was jet lagged. I had a lot of work to do. I have a reading disability. Couldn't keep up with my work. I was staying up later, not sleeping. The not sleeping was making it so I couldn't concentrate. I wasn't sleeping even more so that I could keep up with my work. And all of a sudden I was like seeing things. Like, I literally like walked myself into the therapy office and was like, something's wrong with me. I feel like I can't sleep. I feel like I'm like hallucinating. It wasn't like I was seeing like a monster. It was like I was seeing like animals, like a squirrel that wasn't there, kind of stuff. And at the time, the therapist turned me away. She's like, "We're busy. Sorry, we can't help you." So I call my mother, who at the time is in Thailand, and I say, "Mom, I'm not sleeping." At this point, I'm crying. I'm like, I can't keep up with work. I don't know what to do. And my mom said, I want you to go back to the therapist. And I said, they just told me they didn't have time for me in school. And she said, stay on the phone with me. You get in there right now. And my mom demanded to speak to the therapist. And they said that they could only see me if I was in a state of potential self harm. And this is crazy. I mean, this was 10 years ago.
No.
You can only imagine someone walking into a therapy office. But I always like to say that that was like my first founder moment where I was asking for help. I was trying to figure things out. I thought hustle was normal. I thought being stressed was normal. And even when I went to go get quote unquote mental health help, which felt like I was like at the end, like I didn't even know where to go. They weren't able to help me. And so I ended up dealing with this episode. The diagnosis was not sleeping. I have this in quotes if you're just listening. And then I go and I work in New York City, and the cycle repeated itself, right? This like working really hard, working around the clock, not sleeping well. And so I became a founder to build a mental fitness company to help me deal with my own, we'll call them forever challenges with stress, which every time I tried to Google what to do about it, it just said, here are 10 things to reduce stress. Step 1, reduce stress. Step 2, stop doing the thing that stresses you out. So I was looking for more tactical wisdom,
Get some
information.
work-life balance,
Exactly. And I was just kind of like, okay, but where do I buy that? Like is there something I can take to get work-life balance? So yeah, so that's my long story long for you of it's kind of been this like ever-present journey for me of trying to manage my own mental state, thinking I was doing a good job by like working as quote unquote hard as I could, which meant how many hours in a day could I be seated at my desk, in school reading the book and at work, like doing my job. And I thought that anything short of the maximum hours I could concentrate was not trying.
Where do you think that came from? Like, was it your family that was like putting you the mindset of working so hard? Was it the environment around you? What brought you there?
I think it's like everything, it's like a lot of things. I think it's environment and family. I think my family is incredibly hardworking, and my parents are like the most balanced people I know. They're so loving. Like I said, we traveled all around the world. At the time when I was growing up, like we didn't have this round the clock email. Like Blackberries came out when I was in high school, and I actually remember it changing my dad's work cycle, meaning he was all of a sudden on his phone on vacation in a way that he just couldn't have been growing up. But I think working hard was kind of the question we always were asked when we got our grades back. Did you try your hardest? And I just never really knew. I thought, again, my hardest meant if a day has, let's say, 16 hours in it that you're awake. I thought that trying your hardest meant trying your hardest against the 16-hour days you're awake. Like that's how hard I needed to apply myself. And I must have picked that up also from, I have to say it, but like reinforcement and feedback. It's like when I worked that hard, I was getting grades and therefore getting positive reinforcement, which everybody's looking for. Yeah. And when I found I worked less hard, I got less good grades. Like I wasn't the kind of kid who could show up to school and just do well.
You try to take some time off, but then
you get punished, you get punished. And these are the stories we tell ourselves. And I think what's crazy is my parents never put pressure on us for grades. But then all of a sudden I get to undergrad, and it's, I'm at Cornell, a lot of pressure there, a lot of pressure to do well. I always say there was all these kids with many color highlighters who were always like, did you read page 72? And I was like, I don't know that there was 72 pages in the book, like it was like this very intense environment. And then I moved to New York City, which is, I mean, when you talk about, I really feel as if New York is the capital of hustle culture. I always used to say in New York, if you're not dying, you're not trying. And so this is really hard for me. So I think it was it was a bit of, me interpreting what hard work meant, a bit of positive reinforcement, and then also the environments that I kept putting myself in were really, really high pressure places.
wow, you brought me so back in time because it's so much the same story that I lived, that I know lots of other people lived. For me, it was mostly on related to food. My background is in gastronomy, and
Cool.
well, first it became, well, I got into meditation and breathwork because of panic attacks. But then during COVID, my body shut down completely,
Wow.
and I started to go into biohacking. And so back on the books, studying the biology, the chemistry related to food and how it affects biology and so on. And a doctor, a functional doctor, I had finally managed to get a call, and he said, Alice, stop doing tests. They're not going to find anything. Just quit gluten and lactose for 40 days. After 5 days of abstinence, I woke up without brain fog for the first time in my life, like since I can remember. I didn't even know people could actually live without brain fog. I was like, oh, this is how it feels when you're actually not inflamed. Oh, that's nice. So that was kind of like my different turning points. What were for you the real rock bottom? Like, guide me through the journey. Where are you now compared to where you were before? What did you learn in the meantime, beside the fact that probably if you don't do it by yourself, nobody's going to do it for you, for you? What's the story
Yeah.
behind?
Yeah. So I think couple turning points for me. One was when I worked in New York City, I worked at a bank, and every day I would eat a strawberry frosted donut and read my horoscope, hoping my life would change. Um, and I decided I was going to start speaking to people, figuring out what other jobs existed outside of these like more traditional banking and trading and lawyer jobs that I had been surrounded by growing up. Um, and I ended up at an ed tech company called General Assembly. The company grew from 40 to 1,000 people in 3 years. And I distinctly remember one morning, I didn't wake up. I had never gone to sleep. I was working across multiple time zones because we had clients all over the world. I had managed a huge team of people, and our clients were the C suite and American Express, the New York Times, AXA, Visa, you name it. Um, and I hadn't slept because I was getting calls from people in other parts of the world. And my, again, stress response was keeping me awake. Like my adrenaline was going. And I had to show up to a education program that day. And I remember thinking, this can't be my life. Like, I can't believe I'm not sleeping again, which I knew was like, that was like my kind of fundamental basic block after college. I need to get out of here. I need to go find a place where I not only can sleep, but feel like I'm not always 12 steps behind. And that was the problem was, I think when it comes to hustle culture, it's not that you're feeling like you're crushing it and you're working hard. It feels like you're not doing a good job, even though you're doing everything in your power to show up. And so I started talking to folks. And what I realized was that a lot of people felt the same way I did. And I decided it was time to go to graduate school. So I ended up going to MIT to study how to create great companies, thinking that companies were the main reason why we were all stressed. They were understaffing, they were not paying us the right amount, not necessarily managing workload. Because I kept, at the time telling my boss I had too much to do. And he was just like, we got to keep going. Um, and then when I went to school, what I learned was that great companies are kind of like great people. They set really great expectations about who they are, why they do what they do, and how they're going to do that on a day to day basis. So, vision, mission, values. They hold themselves relentlessly accountable day after day to those things by giving themselves the tools, time, and resources to achieve whatever those expectations are. And what I realized was that most people and companies don't necessarily set those expectations. Like, what am I trying to achieve and how do I want to show up in the world? And therefore, we're at the whim of other people's expectations and thoughts and
Yeah.
opinions. And so I ended up becoming a company fixer. So I went into the last company I worked for was a publicly traded biotech company, 15,000 people publicly traded. We improved every people metric across the board, fixing everything from workload to pay to, career laddering. And what we learned was that even when companies are really well structured, meaning people are in the right environment, um, they're still stressed. And we had just done an employee survey, people were happy. And I went to go speak to a couple employees, and they were telling me that they were stressed about their lives, the gym routine, their diet, their kids. And I thought, oh my gosh, I think I solved the wrong problem. What if the stress that we're thinking is caused by work is actually caused by the way we're choosing to live our lives day to day. And I had this like holy moly facepalm moment because I'm obviously in debt from school, very grateful. Have a lot of great learning from grad school. And that's when I realized I needed to leave the company and start exploring wisdom that existed obviously in the East, in the West, in science, to figure out what are the things that people do every day to make sure that they feel good on a regular basis. And I can obviously speak about that journey, but I think it's been me chasing my own problem, which is, you know, I'm stressed. I want to be in an environment that feels good. Where is that environment? I don't feel good anymore. Where is, I need to go study this because we can't find one. And then now I need to go create my own company. So I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I fell in love with the problem, but it turns out I actually do really love the process, but only because I have a company that helps me manage it, I think.
I've spent the last year asking top founders for their secret sauce. And the honest answer, there isn't just one. Yet, the internet keeps selling us a one recipe fits all. At Whole Grain Wisdom, we are building the tools to help you craft your own recipe so that your mind, body, and energy are fully aligned and you can perform under pressure without burning out. Our recipe is very simple. This podcast shares raw stories from founders who really had the courage to jump off the hamster wheel and rebuild their operating system without hustle. The newsletter is where I go deeper into the science and protocols behind re-engineering flow and performance. And ultimately, we are running founders-only retreats around the world to create the space for real transformation. And to be honest, that's where really the magic happens. Whole Grain Wisdom is where science meets ancient wisdom. It's where we become quantum founders, the entrepreneurs led by inner energy and flow and not finite willpower. If this resonates with you, then join us at wholegrainwisdom.com. Okay, now back to the show. Crazy. Well, this story is fantastic because, again, I don't know, it kind of it feels so familiar for some
Yeah.
reasons. And I'm curious, bring me, before we go into the details of what did you discover in this journey, I want to see, like, you have experience on the corporate part of like getting on a corporate already established and fixing certain metrics and changing culture and so on. First of all, what's the process? Is there a secret sauce? Because it seems that, like the more that I talk about true success and people that work less and less and they achieve more and more, and then somehow out there you go on social media and you keep listening and you keep reading hustle culture stories. It's like we are addicted to this kind of stuff. How do you even change the mindset in certain places?
Yeah. So I always joke that I went to fancy school to learn something really simple, which is that the greatest companies do four things really well. And it's what I call organizational fitness. The reason I use the term fitness is because fitness is a process. The most fit bodybuilder in the world still has to go to the gym every day and do the work in order to stay fit. And most people think with companies that you do one thing, you implement a program or things are going well, that you're good, but you're not good. You have to keep changing and evolving and switching up your routine. But the greatest part about fitness is that we have the key elements you need to work on in order to feel good. Things like cardio and strength training and things like that. When it comes to organizations, great companies really focus on four things. The first is around expectations, getting really clear again on what they expect from a goals perspective, like what they want people to do, but also how they want people to behave in relation to those goals. Because behavior is invisible, it's hard to track. And so a lot of people don't. And I say where people fall down in terms of expectations are really around clear priorities or priority, the single most important thing every single person needs to be doing, and relentlessly holding people accountable to that. And also making sure that values are adhered to. I can't tell you how many companies I work with or leaders I speak to where they've got a toxic employee, somebody who actively undermines the way that people need to show up every day, and they work around them because they quote unquote do their job. And we always like to say, you're not doing your job if you're not behaving in line with what needs to happen at a company. So expectations are first. Second is around foundations. Do people have pay, breaks, check-ins, recognition? Are they basically getting their needs met as a employee of the company? And third is around creating an environment for progress. Do people have growth opportunities, the opportunity to meet other people and connect with friends, which, by the way, is one of the most important things for people liking what they do? Do people have the ability to have their workload managed and titrated up and down based on their skill level? And are they matching their skills to the job? I always say that today most companies skip to creating an environment for progress before they've finished the foundations. So the last but not least is the most important thing, which is relentless communication and accountability. This is where I always say communication and accountability with yourself is a first step. Did you do the thing you said you were going to do? And if not, why? It's not about self-punishment or getting upset or avoiding. It's about hitting things on the head. Companies tend to set goals, mission, vision. They tend to ask managers to achieve the basics for employees or foundations. They tend to create an environment for progress, but where is that feedback loop happening? Where are we talking about and communicating around how things are working? And this is in a shape of a triangle. And I always say communication accountability is the invisible dotted line around everything. Most people don't realize that until we make the visible visible, it doesn't get tracked, measured, and people forget about it. Literally, we forget about it. Daniel Kahneman, a famous economist and psychologist, says that what you see is all there is. And so the work that I do and that you actually do as well is we try to make the invisible, our thoughts, feelings, behaviors, visible and discussed and top of mind. So that's kind of our framework for organizational fitness, and creating dashboards, regular check-ins, accountabilities around these things is absolutely essential. And what you can probably appreciate is that these same 4 things that companies need, people need too.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you now, like, how do you bring that into your daily life as a founder?
Yeah. So couple ways. One is that every week I have a document based on the entrepreneurial operating system, which is actually a system for very big companies, but I have a modified version for me where I come back to my own expectations for myself. So the expectations, I'm checking in on what are my priorities? Am I achieving these and on track or off track? And then am I behaving in line with my values, my personal values? So that's really essential. When it comes to foundations, I have a check-in every Friday, checking in on how I am doing as a person, which sounds a little crazy, but it's actually one of the single most important things that I do every week, which is saying, how am I feeling? What are my wins? What are the things I learned this week? And what are the things I need to commit to next week to make sure that I can execute and feel my best? Because as a founder, you are the product. If you're not feeling good, you make poor decisions, you move slowly, you don't give the right direction, you don't hire right. And therefore, making sure that I take care of myself and my mind is really, really important. And by the way, I should say I have obviously daily rituals around certain things that I do to make sure that I'm feeling good. And some days I'm amazing at them. And other days, just like everybody else on the planet, I'm not as good. So it just totally depends. But that weekend reflection is my titration point, the point where I say, am I on track? Creating an environment for progress. Part of me asking myself what I learned every week is making sure that I'm constantly challenging myself, which as a founder is actually probably the easiest thing in the world to do. There's always things that I'm doing that I don't understand or that are new. But the communication and accountability piece is really key. And given that I'm a solo founder, I've got a couple people I meet with on a regular basis who hold me accountable to the things that I say that I'm going to do and the person that I want to be, basically. And so can talk about any of that in detail. But I am very thoughtful about these things. I always like to say that thank goodness that I am starting a company now and not in my early 20s, because I now have a system for a lot of this to catch myself. Whereas, like I said, I just kept burning out before because I didn't have a rhythm.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I did start companies when I was 19. I've never been employed in my life. Actually, I've been
Wow.
employed for like 4 months, and it was totally crap. But I'm definitely the stereotype of an unemployable person. So I had to learn it with pain, with a lot of pain for sure. And I do
Yeah.
resonate what you're saying. I think I would definitely use the chance that, I mean, normally I would ask you all these questions of what's your support system, how do you manage, how do you cope with it, but it seems like you're already so much on track. So guide me through, first of all, how did you get to develop the system for yourself? And I have very often the kind of like argument against such a strong kind of organized way of processing and going through the routines and the different check-ins and so on and so forth. It seems like almost too much feminine from an introspective point of view. Okay, I think I have very hard time, especially with male founders, to have this type of conversation, like acknowledging that we need so much more time to go inside ourselves and checking in with ourselves. And I do think I have kind of like, like a feminine energy that is quite developed, but for all of them that they have no idea, and they still kind of like feel this is too out of their comfort zone, too much of like, no, I'm not grinding, I don't need time for journaling. Journaling is for the people that I don't know, whatever. Like, explain me how is so powerful.
Yeah. I love that you bring that up because I think that a lot of when you talk about the masculine and the feminine, like a lot of people think that caring for yourself is the feminine. Like that is, and obviously from an energetics perspective, it is. And what most people don't realize is that yin and yang is about finding a balance between these energies within every person, whether you're man or woman or you identify differently. And so balance within ourselves is as important as anything. And I think the entire reason I started the company was because, like it or not, I grew up like with a heavy lean on the masculine because that's what I was rewarded for. So it was grind, 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 achieve, 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 do the thing. And I think there's kind of two parts that I want to address to this. One is like, how do I think about these topics with a balanced lens? And then the second is like, how did I build my routine, knowing that a lot of people think journaling and all of these tools are kind of soft. So the first is that when it comes to these tools, which I actually call mental fitness tools, and this is again where my business sits, I looked into science before I looked into spirituality and the Eastern philosophies. I also went on my own health journey, also had dietary changes, also had all these things. But what I learned was that therapy, performance psychologists, neuroscientists all agree that there are small things that you can be doing every single day that help you identify your cognitive triad, your thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And that these are things that once you become aware of and create quote unquote metacognition, you can shift your thoughts. And when you shift your thoughts, you can shift your feelings and behaviors. So like once I learned this, I was like, oh my gosh, how come nobody taught this to me? Who is doing this today? And who did I look at?
That's what schools should be supposed to be teaching you, right?
It should be. And what I couldn't get over was I was like, athletes, hyper masculine, right? As a space. They do this shit every day, all of them. Yeah. I always say there's 4 parts to peak performance. You have a goal, right? So athletes, it's the literal goal, basket or hole. You've got mindset. So how do you make sure you've got the right clear mind so that as a golfer, you can do the right swing? As a, soccer player, you can make sure that when you miss a goal, you don't necessarily like quit the game, right? They're focused on the work or showing up to practice, and they're focused on capabilities. Those are the 4 things that a great high performer manages. So to me, it became very clear, sure, an athlete might not call it journaling, but they call it speed writing. An athlete might not call it breath work, but they call it managing their nervous system, their autonomic nervous system, right? And they might not call it meditation. They might call it mindfulness or just taking a minute so that they can rest. But I realized that exactly, visualization, right? Creating the right thought patterns. It's not manifestation for them. It's visualization. All of the things that I was reading about, again, in the spiritual work, in the feminine, were also happening in the masculine. They were just rebranded. So for anybody who thinks this isn't for me, that's cool, but it's for high performers. So whether you want to perform at the highest level or not, these tools are being used by people who are. So that was the first thing, was like this like aha moment of that. I think a lot of these tools have a brand problem. The second was that on a personal level, there's a lot of talk around boundaries now. Like I have my routine and I protect that routine. Well, I'm a bit neurodivergent. So no surprise, I think a lot of founders are. And I used to think that a perfect routine was you woke up at the exact same time, you drink the same juice. You then went to, not juice, I'm not allowed to drink that, but you drink, tea. You then, go to the gym. It was like this perfect thing. And that's what high performance looked like. But what I've learned over time is that great performers have their key things that they need, and that their boundaries are ropes, not fences, meaning they are constantly moving around the things that are important to them, and they get those things in a day, but they don't have to be in the same order. And so a lot of people will say to me, well, you seem like the kind of person who's just, you wake up and you do the same things every day. I can't. It's boring. I don't even know what I would do. I can't eat the same things every day. I can't do the same things every day, but I have the same elements that make a good day a good day. And so this is where like my masculine and feminine come in, where the old me would have been like, I have to do things in this exact way, or that I'm not successful. And this is where most people don't build the habit. They're like, oh, I missed my journaling today, whatever. And then they miss it another day and whatever. Instead of saying, I'm going to get 30 seconds in of writing quickly what's on my mind before I start my day. So that was my really long answer to your somewhat simple question, which is a lot of people think this stuff is bullshit. Like, how did I get into it and how do I practice it? I am gentle with it, but religious about the pillars. But they don't have to happen at the same time. And this is really, I always say, if it sounds like it's not for you, you got to go find someone else who's talking about it in a different way.
Yeah, totally. Like you're ringing so many bells, because first, I do always say that founders are like high professional athletes with a very big difference, which is the fact that if you want to win the Olympics, the club or the federation you're into, they're going to put you a team at your disposal to train you, to massage you, to give you nutrition and all the things that are needed for you to succeed. And so it's so obvious. And I had the luck of interviewing another founder that is actually very much into the high sport athletes protocols applied to the high performance landscape, let's say, of corporate and other jobs. And it's so true. Like everything is the same. Like science, ancient wisdom, it's all the same goal. It's all the same process, just rebranded in different times of eras. Now it's everybody want to talk about scientific approach. Perfect. Let's talk about scientific approach. They're actually proving the very same things that we've been saying for thousands of years. So it's just a reminder. Absolutely. So guide me through your support system right now, because you talked about a lot of different tools, let's say. Where, first of all, how do you make sure that you never get even close to burnout? And if you even notice that you're getting there, what's your immediate stop loss action and change pattern?
Yeah. So like I said, I'm lucky because I'm building a company that literally helps solve for this. So my system is embedded in the work that I do every day, and I'm reminded of this every day. And given that truth is one of my top values, like my job is to practice these things on a regular basis. So as a person, so one of my values is to live this stuff.
Extra accountability for you.
Extra accountability. So I've locked myself in. But I built a mental fitness equation that basically brings together the different buckets of work that your brain needs every day to feel good, and that your brain needs to activate for high performance. So we always like to say that there's 3 mind movements your brain needs every day so that it stays fresh. And there's 6 mental muscles you can activate when you're trying to perform at a higher level in any way, shape, or form. If you're trying to present and build more confidence, optimism, resilience, energy, heart focus. When I talk about burnout, there's basically there's 3 buckets of things that I'm constantly thinking about so that daily I'm feeling good. The first is that one of our mental muscles is energy. You know this, I'm sure, as well as I do, that your brain takes up 2% of your body weight and between 20 and 35% of the energy you burn every day. So when you are tired, your brain can't function very well. And there's 4 to 5 things I always say that really fuel our mind. There's more than this in our bigger model, but the basics are sleep, movement, breaks, tech use, and then nutrition, basic nutrition. If you don't take care of these 5 things, your brain cannot work well. And so one is making sure that I'm constantly checking in, especially in that Friday check-in, like how am I doing against these things? The second thing is focus. So focus is the practice of setting your intention in one place. We tend to get exhausted when we are like an athlete trying to score on more than one goal at the same time. If you can't focus, it's hard enough. I always say bowling is my favorite sport because you can win it. Like you literally have a score, a maximum score you can get, period, if you knock down every pin every time. But people still show up to practice every day to do that. They're still focused on hitting the same pins day after day after day. And we as humans tend to lose that intentionality in our day to day. So getting clear on what those goals are and coming back and refocusing on them every day, every week, every month is really, really important for me. And I find that when I'm feeling a little toasty, is what I call it, a little crispy, it's when I am losing sight of the 1 to 2 most important things in my personal and professional life. And I have now expanded my goals. So I'm scoring in multiple places and never feel like I'm winning. So that's my second piece. And last but not least is my daily rhythm. So this is a stoplight, red, yellow, green. I always ask myself, am I recovering? So am I stopping, resting, and building awareness in my mind? Am I cross-training? Am I doing something that helps my brain see and do things differently? This morning, by the way, I ran on a different route for the first time in 2 weeks. I noticed that my brain was a little stuck. Totally blew my mind. And 3 is, am I scoring? Meaning, am I saying what I'm going to do and then on a piece of paper, in a document, in a penny jar, am I tracking my wins? Because if you don't recover, cross-train, and score, all of a sudden, that's when you feel stuck. And that's when burnout, or toastiness, as we call it, really starts to happen. So every week, I'm checking in on my energy. I'm checking in on my focus. And then every day, I'm asking myself at the end of the day, did I stop, slow, and go? And last night, I didn't stop. So while I was cooking dinner, no TV, no headphones, no podcast, no conversation, silence, chopping, right? And I think what's also really helpful is, as you can tell, yes, there's some formal practices that I do in my life. And then there's a lot of informal ways that I'm capturing moments of recovery, cross-training, and scoring. Even talking to you about my progress is a way to track my scoring, right? What have I learned that everyone can do every day? So that's kind of my system.
Amazing. Amazing. I love that. Let me ask you the last question. Do you still have fear as a founder? And if so, what do you really like? What's your recurrent fear about what you're doing? Is it, I don't know, missing the routine and getting back on not sleeping or whatever? Like, what is it still there in the back of your mind that is you kind of makes you a little bit fearful?
Yeah. There's a lot of, I think, fears that pop up every now and again. I think the most recurring fear for me is I'm building something new in a new industry. And sometimes I ask myself, either am I the right person to be doing this, or is the world ready to do differently? And it sounds trite when I say it out loud like that, but it's very real. I've been working on the burnout problem now for 12 years. Okay. So this isn't like in this iteration, I've been working on my business for 5 years, but the hustle culture is real. Like I see people who are raising money, technically speeding along, way more users than me, way more everything than me, all this stuff. And I always say to myself, don't look sideways or you'll trip. Because the real truth is, within my soul, within myself, or like, by the way, if we want to use a little less feminine language and use the masculine, it's I know that I am an expert in this space. I know that what we deliver is unlike anything anyone's seen. Our testimonials are off the charts. People have had babies since they worked with us. They couldn't get pregnant. Like people have changed their entire life, changed their career. People who never, ever loved themselves can literally look in the mirror and say, I like what I see. And so Tony Robbins says there's 2 basic emotions, love and fear. The job isn't to not feel fear. It's to not chase it. And so my constant reset is a mantra or a repeated thought in my head, which is Ippo Ippo. It's Japanese. It's step by step. And that's the thing. I always say, I wish I could, say that there was like a sexier mantra that I have, this big inspirational quote, but yeah, every time it feels big and scary, I just remind myself it's just one step at a time. The same thing I'm asking all my clients to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen. Definitely. Definitely. It's so powerful. And the fear and the love, I mean, the deeper you go, you also understand that fear at the end of the day is also love. So it's all
I
just
love
one
that.
thing. It's only just one thing. But yeah, that this is not a spiritual podcast, so there would be so much more to talk about it. But yeah, I love what you shared. Thanks so much, Lissy. It's been a
Thank
wonderful
you.
conversation, and I wish that anyone can have some time with you. Where can people find you? What are you building precisely, so that we can put a little bit of links in the description and support you as well.
Yeah. So you can find me at www.myndy.co, mindy.co. Also on LinkedIn at Lissy Alden. And yeah, I'd say just reach out anytime if you're looking to learn about what we're up to. We have an application that's currently in beta. So it's an iOS only app. But slowly but surely, we've been building that out and it's going quite well. We also work with companies on organizational and mental fitness. We do workshops, assessments, and consulting engagements. So if you're a company that's looking to just feel a little differently or a little better every day so that you can hit your targets faster, feel free to reach out.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Lissy. Have a good day.
Thank you.